Is Epstein a cover-up by our administration? Absolutely. Do I care? Not really. Do you care? Definitely. That's why I'm covering this for you. And I've got, I think, some pretty unique takes here, really good information. Again, I'm ready to move on and do other stuff, but you guys aren't. None of the American people are. So I'm going to give you my most sober view on the Epstein stuff. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. I'm here to keep you informed. And if this is what everyone's talking about, you better believe I'm going to cover it. I'm going to cover it better than most other people. Here's Molly Hemingway on Fox News, just to kind of set our show up and get it started. And hey, give us a subscribe if you like this.
This is a proxy for what we've seen with so many big stories throughout the years, where the American people just want to know what's going on with whatever assassination attempts, whether it's the one in Butler on Trump or the one that was successful against JFK, the Russia collusion hoax, the situation with Epstein. Everyone understands that there might not be a,
smoking gun.
Right. But no one feels very satisfied with the level of investigation that was taking place or the transparency. And it seems that the FBI and other government agencies care more about managing the narrative than actually just revealing the information that needs to be revealed.
Okay. So this is about the narrative, and Molly Hemingway there, she's one of my most respected journalists. So she's just saying the American people are not going to move on from this. They're not. That is kind of the conclusion of the news today, is that MAGA's pushback is very hard. There's people that are just going, look, Doug, I'm out of MAGA. Trump lied, I'm out. That is not me. I don't care what they come up with. I'm not out of MAGA, Make America Great Again. I'm not out of Trump support. I really support him. Regardless of all of our opinions, we might think he needs to do a little more work on this before he drops it. But here's some MAGA guys just completely done. He's throwing away all of his MAGA stuff because Trump agreed to send defensive missiles to Ukraine.
This is all going in the trash. I do not support Trump anymore. He's a liar. He's a part of the deep state. I do not support Israel. I will not be supporting him anymore. He's part of the deep state.
Dude, why are you throwing that in the trash? You should at least sell it to us on eBay. I think those people prove that they were never MAGA to begin with. If you bail on Trump now, this is a tiny little bump in his entire career, a bad rollout of information for sure. That doesn't mean that ain't nobody jumping ship. Here's Viva Friel, I think his name is, over on Benny Johnson. Just again, I'm going to get a little tiny quote of this.
Whether or not it's a list per se, people know you don't go to jail for trafficking when you're not trafficking to anybody but yourself. The argument wasn't even that it was only traffic for Epstein. The argument was that I guess they didn't get anybody else. Who knows? So there can only be so many theories here. Either it's the absolute truth and everybody should accept it and move on, which is probably not going to happen and is probably not the case. Then the question is Trump, in his willingness to always want to own a situation and not look like he's getting embarrassed or played, that would be the response. You'd get the same response out of him from the reporter.
Okay, so no matter what, you're going to get the same response from Trump because he's really just saying, I want to control this narrative and everyone's spending too much time on Epstein. Now, that is one form of cover-up, is to not offer all of the information. Okay, this one is the most interesting commentary to me, is by Alan Dershowitz. Why? Because Alan Dershowitz was actually part of the whole defense team in the Epstein Island case. So he knows more about it than almost anyone at that 2019 lawsuit. They were interviewing witnesses. He saw the evidence, and he's saying he's not allowed to talk about it, but it is definitely being disappeared and covered up. And I trust Dershowitz a lot. Now, the dialogue is going to be off from the video, so maybe don't pay attention to that so much. But just listen to what he has to say here. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I know for a fact documents are being suppressed, and they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them, but I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them. And that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything.
Both. They're everything. Politicians, leaders. So to me, his testimony has as much credibility as anyone. Trump, Pam Bondi, Prakash Patel, Dan Bongino. This goes into my video I did yesterday on it by Scott Adams, where he goes, look, maybe there's something so horrifying that would compromise America's safety that you can't put this information out. And so now the question is, would you rather know the truth if it compromised our safety? That's an opinion. I get it. But Epstein, there was a lot of innocent people on Epstein's list also, including people like RFK Jr. Here's the first time I've heard this, that he was on the Epstein plane twice.
You weren't ever on Jeffrey Epstein's jet, were you?
I was on Jeffrey Epstein's jet 2 times. I was on it in 1993, and I was on it and I went to Florida with my wife and 2 children.
Okay, so he doesn't know anything about other than that, is that he is one of the people that would be on the flight logs. He and his wife and children just use Epstein's plane to get around places twice. So does he have to have his name exposed on all this stuff? Now, I'm going to go to Victor Davis Hanson over here on the Glenn Beck show, because he also, now this is a MAGA 100% guy, hardcore. And he flat out says, you know, it was a bad rollout. There's a lot of reasons why Trump had to do a cover up. Here's his testimony.
What do you think this is really? Because I don't think it's about Epstein. What do you think this is really about?
I think it's pretty clear now that Epstein had no talent other than blackmail, and he was not a financier. He was not a captain of finance at all. What he did is he invited very powerful people to his island or his New York home, filmed them, and then he bribed them, and he shook them down and said, I'm going to be your quote unquote financial advisor, and in exchange for that, I'm not going to release all that stuff. And whether, you know, there were some pretty big
isn't it
people
being exposed?
Because I think it's not, I think there are people in the establishment. I don't know if they partook in his sick things he was doing, but they feel they have some association with him, and they have they gave him money to invest when there was no reason to hire someone like that. There were much better financial gurus, but he got $500 million somehow from people who were mainstream establishmentarians on the basis that he was going to blackmail them. I think that's how he made his money. And I think those names are numerous. And I think the Trump administration thought, well, we're going to release this, and there's some crazy people that we don't care about are going to be embarrassed. And then all of a sudden, they got a lot of calls and said, why are you doing this? I didn't do this. I went down to the island once. I was on a plane. I didn't touch anybody.
And that backs up what RFK Jr. just said. He was on a plane. You know, why should he be on some kind of a list and just get dragged through the mud? And so there's a lot of donors and political class calling Trump saying, you know, I didn't do anything.
And they're saying, and now you're going to release my name and I'll be guilt by, I'm not going to, and I think that's what's happening. There's a lot of people who were very powerful that were giving him money or were trafficking with him, not necessarily all of them engaging in what he was doing, but just the association with him. And I think they're putting pressure on people. I really do.
Does there come a time when you just have to say, I'm really sorry, but the country needs its credibility. These offices need their credibility. And if you're not guilty, then, you know, I'll be there for you and look at your case and everything else. But, you know, if you're guilty, you're guilty. Yeah. We have to restore the credibility or we don't have a country.
Well, you summed up exactly what Pam Bondi and the FBI and people said to us in February. That's exactly what they said. And then something has changed in their attitude once they got into the data, the material. And the conspiracists say, well, you know, there's officials involved. I don't know if it's, I think it's more maybe the donor class or people across the political spectrum that are very powerful, influential. And some of them were very terrified of Jeffrey Epstein. And that's it. I think you have to start with the premise, how does somebody with no financial experience end up with no proven ability as a master of Wall Street with $500 million? I mean, when you start looking at who was giving him money to invest, these were people who would never give him money and let him invest their money with that background. And yet they did. And the reason they did, I think, is that he showed them pictures or he entrapped them. So something has happened in the administration's attitude from February until now. And I think they would say, well, we went in there and there's a bunch of lurid pictures and we don't want to release that. And he didn't get murdered or anything. We're pretty clear of that. So it's kind of ancient history. And I think the people on the right, the conservatives, say, well, just tell us, is there a list and who was on it? Because we'll make our own conjectures. And I think eventually I don't think they can stop it. I think there's too many people that want to know.
He doesn't think they can stop it. There's too many people that want to know. That's the main thing, is this is not going to go away, according to Victor Davis Hanson. I trust him a lot. And then here's Tim Burchett just on his take. I respect him a lot, so I wanted to hear him weigh in on it.
I think the files existed at one time. I think they were destroyed in the previous administration. And I think if they'd ever had anything on Trump, it would have been out day one.
Agreed.
Under the Biden administration. And I think there's some very prominent people. There's Hollywood people, but I think there's world leaders too. And would it have caused economic disruption around the globe? Maybe, but I don't really care. I want to.
Do you think there's a theory? Is there a theory perhaps that not none, but maybe some of the people on the list didn't do anything wrong, and this would be a terrible guilt by association to put their names out, just to put everybody's name out? No one's been charged with a crime. Put all these people's names out, and suddenly, because they had an interaction with Epstein that was completely benign, they're labeled as one of his buddies?
What's Miss Maxwell doing in jail? What did she do? Where is that? Who did she provide?
Okay, so this goes back to the why is she in jail? That's, again, I don't want to keep giving you guys videos of stuff that's been repeated 1,000 times before. What's more important is that Tim Burchett, he's not claiming knowledge, neither is Victor Davis Hanson. They're just giving you evidence of what they see, and then they give you an opinion. But Burchett's opinion is, yeah, it's Hollywood people's names, powerful people's names are on the list. And of course, Trump is not guilty of being in any way doing something bad with Epstein, because if he was guilty, you'd know about it. For sure, at the last election, that all would have made it out to the public. So it is not there against Trump. Now, here's Mike Davis. He's the lawyer guy that we respect a lot around here, and he's on board with Trump with the move on, just move along. He goes, the FBI, under the great leadership of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, concluded the investigation. Pam Bondi explained what she meant by the files versus any list. She explained the minute reset every night. She can't release adult information. What more do you people want done? Seriously. So he's in the move on camp. I kind of have a new theory on the Pam Bondi, the missing minute from that tape, is I don't buy it, because I think it would have been clear in all of the testimony that tape would have been brought up. They would have asked about it. It would be common knowledge that minute is missing. Here's another guy I respect a lot, Kaizen Asiju. He has a YouTube channel here, but this was him over on X. And I just wanted to get this tail end of his comment on how this is. I blame Trump because Pam Bondi works for him, but a lot of people are blaming Pam Bondi because they don't have the balls to blame Trump. But I do like his take. I think he's brilliant on this.
Only 2 people have gone to prison. Trump's team didn't cause the Epstein scandal, and they deserve credit for giving us more transparency than we had from previous administrations. They partially followed through on a promise that they never had to make, but they also promised a reckoning. They set expectations and then failed to meet them. They hinted justice was coming and instead delivered photo ops with favored influencers and excuses. Maybe it was just an embarrassingly mismanaged rollout. Maybe it's true that Pam Bondi misspoke and meant the Epstein files were on her desk, not a literal client list. Maybe it wasn't a cover-up, just a letdown. But for many people, the damage is done because at a certain point, incompetence and malevolence look exactly the same.
That's Kaizen. Incompetence and malevolence both look the same. They look like a cover-up for whatever reason. You ended up botching the rollout. So I don't think it's going away. You're either going to get more information by Trump and Pam Bondi coming out and saying, we lied to you, we actually have the stuff, and here it is. They're either going to do that, or they're going to double down and say, guys, we've already accepted all the damage on this that we're going to take. We are damaged, and we're still going to move on and quit talking about it. One of those 2 outcomes are going to come. Most of the theories now are they're going to have to revisit this and give us more information. What do you guys think in the comments below? Will Trump release more information and apologize for telling people to move on? Or will they continue to say, move on, we've already taken our damage? I'm Doug in Exile. Subscribe.